Thank you so much for staying tuned to yet another edition of International Forum. I am Wilson Marshall. Today, it is all about the Russia-Ukraine war and, of course, the deoccupation of the Dombas region. That is what we are here to discuss. Retaking of some of those cities, those towns, those villages occupied by Russian forces, formerly by Ukrainian forces. And they are saying that they got lots and lots of support from the US, from Germany, from NATO, and that may just turn the tide of the war. But Putin said all this retaking right now in quotes is not going to change his plans of the invasion. He called it surgical operation. He also calls it surgical response to protect the Russian-speaking citizens in the Dombas region. But with the recapturing of the Izium village or city or town, depends on the way you want to call it, is there a turn in tide in this war? Is it the beginning of the end of Russian occupation of Ukraine? All these and more will take a look at on today's edition of International Forum. I'd like to start the introduction by introducing a lecturer, a political analyst, political affairs commentator. Join me to welcome Neville Obahedo. Welcome to International Forum. I appreciate your coming.
Good afternoon, viewers at home. Thank you, ITV, for inviting me for this International Forum program.
All right. And so very close to him, he is a vibrant youth, political affairs commentator, a legal practitioner. Join me to welcome Barrister Gabriel Ehigato. Welcome to International Forum.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, Nigeria.
All right. The invasion of war commemorates started in the month of February. Some like saying that it's going to be a quick one by the Russians, but here we are. It has taken so much time to the extent that the world is almost getting weary of talking about the Russia-Ukraine war, though the impact has been felt globally. And right now we see Ukraine has been led by Zelensky, saying that they're going to recapture all the lands occupied by the Russian forces. And Izium has been recaptured according to the Ukrainian forces and Zelensky. When Izium was recaptured, was, deoccupied from the Russian forces. What came to your mind, Neville?
What came to my mind when Izium and some other economic cities or towns in the Dombas region were captured by the Ukrainian forces is the fact that those who are eager to prosecute a war, they are not actually the one to determine the direction of that war, especially as it affects the Russian Federation just now and the activities of Vladimir Putin, which has sometimes referred to as a surgical operation or has referred to as a special military operation in Ukraine. Now, the fundamental aspect of this recapture is the fact that the Dombas region is having borders with other regions like Dnipro, like Zaporizhia, and you know that Luhansk, which also have a border boundary with Russia on the eastern part, and Donetsk, they have access to the sea, where Ukraine have a lot of economic activities like coal activities, like military activities, manufacturing weapons there. And so if you allow Russia to continue to have a control there, it will affect the impact of the Ukrainian armed forces on this war that Russia has launched on Ukraine. But beyond the recapture and beyond the celebration and beyond maybe a possible recapture by the Russian forces, we need to look at the Dombas region very critically from a historical perspective, because the reason why we have had all this separatist movement here is because of the fact that what the Russian Federation has been doing since Vladimir Putin came to power is to be exporting the Russian Federation population to countries like Georgia. Then he will now instigate a rebellion there. He will now say, okay, let us go and create a country, a self-autonomous country like Abkhazia or Ossetia there. Now let us export Russian population to Dombas region, where you have about 48.2% of the population that are Russians. And that is the highest after Crimea. So he's doing all these things to weaken perceived enemies of Russia that want to disintegrate those countries and reunite Russia again as the default union of Soviet Socialist Republic. But that is the dream of Vladimir Putin, because he has regretted the activities of the lives of late Mikhail Gorbachev for allowing the default Soviet Union to dissolve. He has blamed the lives of, let me just say, presidents of the Presidium of the Soviet Republic in the past, like Khrushchev, Brezhnev, Konstantin Chernenko. He has blamed them because of the way they played the policies of Russia. Why did they not even make an impact on the international arena the way America is making impact, so that the Cold War will not have ended? He's regretting that the Cold War ended, and he's trying to see if he can put himself in a position that will make Russia to be strong. So what he's doing in Dombas, what he's doing in Ossetia, what he's doing in Abkhazia, what he's doing in Latvia, what he's doing in other countries, what he's even doing by support to countries like Syria and other places, is to begin to say that with America as the leading superpower, let the Russian Federation stand in place of the default Soviet Union. But he does not know how to go about it.
All right. I'll come back to you on that. He doesn't know how to go about it, but somehow he's doing something about it. Now, the recapture of ASEAN, take it out from there. What do you feel, Barrister?
Well, I think first and foremost, we must look at the motive behind the international policy that's being perpetrated by Putin. It shows that the only policy he has is to conquer the other nations and put them into what we call modern slavery and colonialism. A few days ago, I listened to the deputy defense minister of Ukraine, Anna Pamale, when he said that the Ukrainian force are able to recapture and reclaim over 300 villages and towns in the city of Dombas, and also are able to claim about 6,000 square kilometers. And they will be able to regain all of those landscape and recapture them. But the issue is, for how long are they going to sustain the recapturing? Because international experts have even said that Russia is trying to regroup to see how they could recapture those lands that have already been captured by the Ukrainian military forces. And it's a big threat. It's a big threat, I must confess, because it took Russia less than 10 days when the war started in February this year to capture all of those places that are being recaptured by Ukrainian forces now. Yesterday, less than 10 days. And we could see the length of time it took the Ukrainian government, the Ukrainian military force, to recapture back their city. And Dombas is a very important city to the Ukrainian existence. In fact, experts have said that what Dombas is to Ukraine is what Lagos is to Nigeria. So it's an economic viable region. We have to do it. I think there are some economic sustainability that are there, like the gas plant, like the weapon manufacturing companies, and what have you. So for me, it's a good news, and it's a plus to the Ukrainian military force. But the question is, if they were able to sustain the recapturing of those time, only time will tell.
So, because we were coming to that part, sustaining or occupying the occupied, cities and towns and villages formerly occupied by the Russian forces. Now, Zelensky was in one of the cities recaptured. He was able to go there to boost the morale of the Ukrainian troops, and of course, he gave a wonderful thank you message to the Americans, to NATO. Do you feel that right now USA coming out saying they're the one that supplied this weapon. Germany also coming out to say, yes, they are also involved in this. And some other NATO countries coming out to say they are the ones backing up Ukraine. How do you think all this will affect the war? Over to you, Neville.
You see, anytime there is war between two nations, there are usually other nation states that try to take side with either side of the divide. Recently, a Nigerian associate professor, Fimi, posted something about the late Queen Elizabeth because of the role that she fed the British government, where Queen Elizabeth was the head of state, played during the Civil War by siding the Nigeria federal government or federal military government at that time. So, because the world is a multipolar world, there are different sources of power in the world. If you go to Europe, you want to recognize the powers in Europe, you have to start with Germany, followed by France, Britain, and the rest of them. And when you go to the Americas, you have to talk about the United States of America and Canada. And then other parts of the world like the Asia, like the Middle East. There are countries there that you know that when they are sneezing, certain other countries will be catching cold. So right now as the war is ongoing, or as the invasion is ongoing, because sometimes I find it difficult to refer to it as a war, because Ukraine never challenged the Russian Federation to war. Russia, because Vladimir Putin wants to remain in power beyond 2036, and the last election that he won, he has not been inaugurated. It will be inaugurated in 2024 for the election that he won in 2020 or so, or 2021. So he believes that he can use his power to bully on the whole world. When I say bully on the whole world, not necessarily military power this time, because he knows that several countries of Europe and America, they rely on gas and some other power-related resource from Russia. He feels that if there's any war that they are showing interest, he will cut off gas supply to them. And he has done that to deal with them. And they believe that it's an opportunity for them to redirect the economic relation of the world and the role of Russia in it, especially when it comes to using it as a weapon of intimidation, as a weapon of threat, and as a weapon of getting what Russia as a federation does not deserve in the international system. So America supported them. You know that America would not like another Joseph Stalin to come to the world stage. America would not like another Adolf Hitler to come to the world stage. Right. America would not like the likes of I've tried to remember the name of this man that practiced fascism in Italy, and several other persons who have come to this world to feel that they have to change the history of the world from a war perspective. So right now, we just believe that this war will not lead to a world war. If it leads to a world war, it's only God that knows when the war will actually end.
Yeah, later we'll go to the prospect of the World War thing that is just dangling around the world right now. Now, from what he rightly said, he talked about Russia trying to cap the pipe supplying major cities in Europe gas, and winter is fast approaching. Is that the reason why these other countries are aggressive towards Russia by supplying Ukraine these weapons?
Are people surprised that it is not those countries are being aggressive? When the war started, that been issue from the beginning. Those countries were silent. Nobody seems to be supporting or having any emotional support to the Ukrainian government. So, because when you look at the economic landscape of Europe, you will see that majority of the European countries depend on Russian oil to survive in terms of petroleum and other resources. So they are scared to speak to Russia. They are scared to bull Russia. They are scared to bring Russia to a standstill. I was surprised some days ago when America was threatening Chinese. I told Chinese that if they attack Taiwan, they are going to attack Chinese. They are going to defend Taiwan. But you have not seen anybody coming out boldly, any country coming out boldly to challenge Russia for what they have been doing in Ukraine. So The European nations are actually playing their political game. They do not want to attack Russia by losing the supply of those resources. And once winter comes on, we know what the effect is going to have on those countries. So they are all trying to play a double game. In as much as they are not in support of what Russia is doing to Ukraine, they are not also want to lose whatever economic relationship they have with Russia. So that is what is giving Putin the men to go on. And do not forget that Russian crude oil seems to be one of the best in the world. And a lot of European countries depends on it to survive. So be that as it may, it's a game for all.
It's a game for all.
Exactly.
Anyone can take, anyone can lose, anyone can give.
Exactly.
All right, and Neville, now it's like the war is getting to a particular height. And this time around, we are seeing world powers showing the side they are supporting. We are seeing world powers also talking out loud about the war between Russia and Ukraine. And Russia, on the other hand, has gone to Xi Jinping to discuss issues with him also concerning the war in Ukraine. Don't forget the threat that America issued to China over Taiwan. All these things put together, do you see World War dangling around the corner?
It's just like one professor the other day, one American scholar, the other day wrote a book about whether America and China will go to war over economic relations and over Taiwan and over the various seas in the Far East and in the Pacific area where China has been dominating other countries, arresting their ships, their cargo ship, their warship, and the rest of them, and backing on military drills to send messages to those countries like the Philippines that if they cross particular territorial waters that China is laying claim to, China was going to descend on them heavily, military-wise. Now, we know that there have been wars in the past in this world. There have been 30 years war in Europe. There have been the First World War. There have been the Second World War. And there have been other kinds of wars in other parts of the world, including Africa here. And we know that all these wars, different countries have participated in them, either directly or indirectly. Right now, as we speak, I don't believe that China can go to war with Taiwan. Because if China goes to war with Taiwan, we know that China has also been adopting a policy of exporting its population to other parts of the world. If you go to Uganda, if you come to Nigeria, anywhere you go to, you see Chinese. And as they are in Nigeria, for example, you will not see their children attending Nigeria schools. They will still bring part of their population from China to establish Chinese school, Chinese primary school, Chinese secondary school, and then when they are through, they can go to China for their university or tertiary education. So that is how they are scattering their population around the world. Because if the population is domiciled in China, they will have serious economic problems. Now, if there is a war between China and Taiwan, and America has already made it clear, when America is making it clear that we are in support of a country, you know that it's not only America, it's America and our allies that are supporting that kind of country. So if America is telling you that if the government, the People's Republic of China, or that Xi Jinping attacks Taiwan, we are also going to attack China. It is a message that the attack on China will be so devastating, it will destroy the economy of China. You can see what Vladimir Putin is doing in Ukraine, targeting installations, military installation, gas installation, coal installation,
nuclear power installation.
Yes, nuclear power installation, destroying them. That is exactly what will happen to China when such a war starts. Because within China, there are already domestic crises in China. If you go to one region, one state in China, there are other several states that are close to Turkey, Afghanistan, some other countries. That particular state they call Xinjiang state or Xinjiang region, Xinjiang province, is a mostly dominated area because it's close to the Arab world. And the government of China is descending on them, descending on those people, and is hypnotizing them, try to organize schools, indoctrinate them, and make them to feel that even though they are Muslims, they should not allow that Muslim ideology to affect their relationship with the state and so on. So, and you know that the computer microchips that is being used all over the world, majority of it is manufactured in Taiwan. Whether they are using it in America, they are using it in Canada, they are using it in other parts of the world, even in China. So going to war in Taiwan is going to affect all these ICT businesses around the world. And America will not allow it because their economy is ICT driven. Yeah. I'm not sure Nigeria will also allow it because Nigeria even electoral system is ICT driven now.
All right.
Because, so on. So
okay.
Trying to go to war, I believe that the way the government of the fourth USSR prevented the war with America over the 1962 nuclear crisis. I believe that is how the managers of the Chinese state will also discuss with America and Taiwan not to go to war.
All right.
Because the war will be too consequential on the entire world.
Okay. Right now, there's this meeting between China and Russia. From what Neves said, he said there'll be no cause war because it is going to affect many parts of the world, China inclusive, America inclusive, and the world will be running head to scatter because three major powers slugging it out will not be so cool for the world. Now, what do you think made Putin to go pay a visit to Xi Jinping to discuss the Ukraine-Russia crisis?
Well, I think Putin is just trying to build a not sincere apostle of peace, yet he's being involved in war. Putin visits have not shown any significance. The United Nations themselves have even abandoned Ukraine. And nobody seems to be saying anything because these countries are scared of Russia. From the beginning, we saw the intensity of the war. We saw the gas-terrorism at which Russia military forces attack Ukraine. You can already, in fact, we can even predict the effect thereafter. And now almost all the world, almost all part of the world is being suffering the effect by that war. So a restriction of China attacking Taiwan will actually go a long way at this time. Because if you look at the history that I've had it over time, the countries that have always formed superiority over other countries have the capacity to actually destroy those nations. Look at what happened to Japan when America attacked Japan. Now look at the level of development Ukraine have before they were attacked by Russia. So over time, superpower nations have never actually helped in developing other smaller nations than conquering them. We need to take over them as conquering a nation and territory, which is not good for world democracy. But be that as it may, I think United Nations need to come to the aid of Ukraine. They need to also have a round table to discuss the issue of China and Taiwan, which is already a boiling point of another war. If the necessary machineries have been put in place, if world leaders have not come together in a round table to resolve this issue and call China to order, just the way they are trying to call Russia to order, then we may have another third war. And that may be very devastating.
All right. Now, some in Russia are saying that this is a tactical withdrawal. After all, winter is coming. What do you feel about that? Knowing fully well that beginning to cap up the pipeline supplying gas to this region. Is it a tactical withdrawal? Because Putin said it doesn't change anything. He was so emphatic about it. It does not change anything.
You see, people that are losing war, they are back on what we call megalomaniac statement to boost the psychology of his troops and himself by saying that it does not change anything. If it does not change anything, why is Putin afraid of his own soldiers? If you ever see anytime Putin is meeting with the Security Council, you see the seat where he's sitting down far away from every other person because he's afraid that he could be poisoned, because he himself has been part of that kind of poisoning arrangement. I'm sure he has even changed all his cooks and other personal servants now because he's afraid of them. So he's living in fear.
No, but according to me, these are security measures.
Yes, he's living in fear.
Yeah.
And while living in fear, the other day, a close ally of Vladimir Putin had the daughter lost her life in a bomb blast in Moscow. For that kind of terrorist activity to take place in the heart of Moscow, even though there have been terrorist attacks there before, it's a message. It's a message to Putin that the bravado and the courage he feels he has to continue that war, it may be disappointing at the end of the day. You can see the number of soldiers, Russian soldiers, trained soldiers, experienced soldiers that have lost their life in the battlefield in Ukraine. Yet Ukraine was not prepared for the war. You see the number of armored tanks belonging to Russia that have been destroyed in Ukraine. You see other military hardware belonging to Russia that have been destroyed in Ukraine. Yet Ukraine was not prepared for the war. Every action of Ukraine is like an emergency response. If the war moves to Kharkiv, for instance, there will be an emergency response to Russian attack in Kharkiv. If it goes to Zaporizhia, there will be another emergency attack, another emergency response from Ukrainian forces. So the Ukrainian government did not prepare for the war. Let us not even talk about the ratio of Russian soldiers to Ukrainian soldiers. But if you look at the number of deaths of military personnel in this Russian invasion of Ukraine, you will say that the word tactical withdrawal is even an understatement for Russia. Because the other day I listened to the defense minister, the foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov of the Russian Federation, when they were leaving Kiev, Kharkiv, and some other places, and they were moving towards this Dombas region that we have been talking about. He said they want to reappraise the war and now focus on the Dombas region. And you know, in the process, shortly before this reassessment of the war, they have to support Russians that are living in Ukraine, in Luhansk, to declare their republic. Luhansk People's Republic, Donetsk People's Republic, by harming them and be making them to be fighting the Ukrainian government. So if you look at it, if those two republics that were created by Russia in Ukraine, if you look at them, you know that the Russian government will be supporting them. So in the Dombas region axis, the government of Ukraine is not only facing Russia, the government of Ukraine is facing Donetsk People's Republic, is facing Luhansk People's Republic, and is facing the Russian Federation. 3 countries in quote fighting Ukraine. So you see that there is the need for Russia President Vladimir Putin to withdraw from this war where the invasion is largest, because when there is now internal implosion, when there is now internal rebellion, because the war is having effect on the economy of Russians, of the Russian people. It's having an effect on the economy of Russia as a country and on the food that's on the table of the Russians. A time can come, the way the other day the people of Sri Lanka woke up and they rose against their president and their prime minister. Yes. So when it gets to that stage, that the Russian people from various regions, they will not rise against Vladimir Putin. Then, if he survives it, he will not regret his mission to Ukraine.
Okay. All right. Now, you talked about the Ukrainian soldiers being able to sustain the occupation of this region once upon a time occupied by the Russian forces. Do you see it happening for them to sustain that tempo? Knowing fully well from what he said, if there is a kind of a call, Ukrainian army always responds. If there's a crisis in Kharkiv, they move to Kharkiv, just move one place to the other. With this kind of movement, do you feel they can sustain it?
Ordinarily, the Englishman said when the going get tough,
the tough gets going.
the Ukrainians have no choice than to defend Dombas, because that place seems to be the most economically viable place in the Ukrainian territory. That's where their gas plant is located. That's where their weapon manufacturing companies are located. So they have no choice than to guide it. So because I think that the Russian forces have pushed them to the wall, and they have no choice than to form a resistance, and they have to defend that place, that region, with the last blood in their vein. So if you look at the body language and the psychology of the Ukrainian military force, you will see a military force that is ready to defend to the last, a military force that is ready to fight to the last. And just as the lecturer said, the psychology of those men have been boosted by their president, by various speech given by the president, by various press briefings given by the president. You always see the president hailing their men and saying, giving them a thumping and saying, you can do it. So for me, I think the Russia, in recapturing those territories, have a lot of work to do. But just as he said, they need to leave now that the ovation is high. Because by the time it began to be internal rebellism, then the Putin himself will have himself to blame.
All right. Now, do you see Russian troops leaving just like that? Because they are banking on the winter. And of course, there's this rumor and speculation that Russia may use tactical nuclear weapon. Take it up from there.
When you talk about nuclear weapons,
don't forget the term also tactical.
Yes. When you talk about nuclear weapons, we have heard the other day the North Korean leader, he said he declared North Korea as a nuclear power state. The question is, if the North Korea leader uses nuclear weapon in North Korea to affect South Korea, to affect Japan, and to affect other countries around that axis, where will he be? Where will he himself, the president and his household, where will they be? Will they have immunity from the effect of the nuclear weapon? It's just like as we are here now. I say let us pray. As we are here, I say let us pray. Then in the course of the prayer, I will say, as we are sitting down in these studios now, let this building, let the heavens of this building come and kiss the earth. If you say the heavens should come and kiss the earth, that means this building should collapse on us. Where are we going to be? So when people are threatening, we are going to use nuclear weapon. Where are they going to use the nuclear weapon? If Russia uses nuclear weapon, America have allies in that region. They are also well saturated with nuclear weapons in that region, like Japan, like South Korea. They have nuclear weapons. They are not far away from Russia. They are not far away from the theater of war. Other countries that are close to like Poland, they have nuclear weapons. So if Vladimir Putin uses nuclear weapons, whether tactical nuclear weapon or tactical nuclear weapons, and it is having effect on other countries, in fact, it will spread to the whole of Europe. Will other European nations be folding their hands and be watching Vladimir Putin? The question is, where will Putin and his family be when he uses those nuclear weapons? You know that, as I said earlier, when people are about to lose a war, they will be using bravado and megalomaniac languages just to send a message to the spine of other of their enemies that, yes, we are still in control, we are still in control. Right now, Russia is not in control of anything, apart from sending troops to go to Ukraine, go and destroy this one, go and destroy that one. It's not in control of anything. The whole world has risen against Russia because of this very senseless invasion of Ukraine. One respects Vladimir Putin as a former intelligence officer of the Russian KGB, to study and learn from the history, the good, the bad, and the ugly side of previous leaders of the defunct Soviet Union, so that it will be properly guided in its activities when it comes to this war. to economic relations, political relations, military relations. After the balkanization of the default USSR, when Putin came, or while he was still a special advisor to Boris Yeltsin, they went to one republic they call what's the name of this republic? Oh, when I remember, I will tell you. Chechen Republic. Then they went to Georgia. They have gone to other countries for the purpose of destroy them and try to annex them back to the yes.
Yeah.
This he would have been able to do, like the late Queen Elizabeth did when she was leaving the colonies that she was their governor general. She was the head of state, but represented by a governor general. When they now became republic, he would now say, "Come and join Commonwealth of Nations." That even shortly before she died the other day, she wrote a letter to the Commonwealth that she's old now. She wants the son, who is now King Charles III, to be the chairman. That the Commonwealth of Nations will accept Prince Charles as he then was.
That's King Charles now.
Yeah, yes, as he then was, to become the chairman of the Commonwealth. Now, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, those who were there before, in their infinite wisdom, like Boris Yeltsin, like Zhuganov, the list is long of those people who came up with the idea of the Commonwealth of Independent States. Even during that period, the Olympic Games that they organized that period, there was no USSR in that game. There was Commonwealth of Independent States. All these countries, whether they are Georgia, whether they are Ukraine, whether they are Russia Federation, whether they are Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, all of them, they came together. Yes,
all right.
to go to that Olympic. Now, if Vladimir Putin want the former default the USSR, the default USSR to be a superpower, and he wants to be the leader of it, he should do it through Commonwealth. If he thinks that he can do it by this balkanization of this country and reintegrating them into the Russian Federation, he will definitely fail.
All right, he will definitely fail. Now,
yes,
is this the beginning of the end of the war, Barrister?
It all depends on Putin. If Putin decides to listen to his people and the voice of wisdom for the members of the United Nations organization, then there could be a stop to the war. But if he doesn't, there is a beginning of the end. Because what Putin is doing is putting the whole world in risk and trying to threaten the whole world. That Russia has the capacity, the military capacity, to balkanize every nation and subdue them as his colony. So that's what he's trying to show to every nation. And I must tell you, all nations of the world are allowed, everybody's allowed, and they are trying as much as possible to also prepare to see how to resist Russia. Because over time, there is no war that has sustained the test of time, except other wars we have had, like the First World War and the Second World War. So what Putin is doing, if he's not being put under control, there's going to cause a third world war, and that would be very dangerous for our human existence as people of the world.
All right. Now, I'm going to ask you the same question. Is this the beginning of the end of this war?
We cannot say this is going to be the beginning and the end of this war. The reason is because some of the actors in the war, they are witnessing changes in the political leadership of their country. I will take Britain, for instance. Britain, within a period of less than a month or so, they removed their prime minister and put another one. That same period, they lost the head of state, Queen Elizabeth. And now, head of government is new, head of state is new. So let us see what is going to be their approach. Because at the beginning of this war, remember the British Prime Minister then, what is that his name?
Theresa May?
No, the immediate past Prime Minister, yes.
Johnson.
Boris Johnson. Yeah. He paid a visit to Kiev to go and visit Volodymyr Zelensky, apparently to boost his morale and the morale of his soldiers. and to let you know that Britain was with him in this war. But the people of Britain have also been crying that as a result of sanctions from China over certain products that they get from the Russian Federation, there is now a high cost of living, and it's biting on them. Now, the question is whether this is the beginning of the end. For the Dombas region, I will say is the beginning of the end, because most of the people that are Russian by ethnic origin, when this war was shifted to that axis, most of them crossed and entered Russia. Over 60,000 of them, if not more than that, they entered into Russia because that is their original home. They only came to settle in Dombas region and started claiming it as their territory. Then the indigenous Ukrainians, those that were from 18 years to 60 years or so, they were asked to leave the territory. So what Vladimir Putin is taking to be victory in that area is just destruction of infrastructure, because the people, majority of the people left those areas before the arrival of the Russian troops.
Yes.
Yeah. So in that area, we believe that because it is part of the economic hub of the Ukrainian Federation, they are going to try to protect it by ensuring that the Russia never recaptures that area again. Now, when you now look at the war, you look at the war, and look at the effect of the war. I don't look at the effect of the war on Ukraine. I look at the effect of the war on Russia, because it's like those days we're reading about Gulliver's Travels. We see the Lilliputians there. They were very tiny and very little, and then you see one person that has come as a giant. They say, this one that is a giant can conquer territory, for let him be our king. Are you getting it? So if you compare Russia and Ukraine, and now Russia prepared for war. Russia has been preparing for war from the beginning, and preparing for war, all kinds of wars, whether nuclear war, whether normal warfare, like whether invasion. Russia has been preparing for it, and even before Volodymyr Zelensky became the president
of Ukraine.
Yeah, of Ukraine in 2019. Even when Poroshenko was there, and other presidents that were there before, either you are pro-Russia or you are anti-Russia. If you are pro-Russia, then Russia will not have any problem with you, but it will still come and garrison your territory that's dominated by Russian population with their soldiers. It will not fight you. But as soon as you are anti-Russia, it will not bring out those soldiers and the separatists to begin to fight you. So we cannot say this is the beginning of the end. It may be the beginning of the end of the victory of Russia and Putin in the eastern axis of Ukraine. But that is not going to be the beginning of the end of this war, because, as my co-discussor rightly said, the end to this war is to be determined by Putin. Either he agrees for the war to end on a dialogue table, or the war will end on the battlefield, and at that time the battlefield will now be taken to Russia, and not the battlefields of Ukraine, as we have seen in Kharkiv, Kiev, in Zaporizhia, in Dnipro, in Mariupol and other places.
Okay. Well, before we call it a wrap on this show, we cannot jettison the aspect of winter coming. Is it going to be a determining factor in this war?
Well, we cannot stop the nature from taking its own existence. Winter is a very serious season in the European nation. And by now, if there wasn't war, the government would have been preparing the people by now for the winter season. Yeah. But now there is nothing like that. And there is going to be a very serious, first of all, you're going to have a serious economic degradation on the people, especially on Ukraine and Russia per se. So winter needed to have been controlled as in nature. But there's nothing we can do about it. Putin needs to understand that the interest of his people is also at risk in this whole game. So Putin needs to withdraw himself back as well as the people can have back their economic life. Because it is now, everything seems to be on standstill. The Russians have lost a lot of men in this war, even more than the Ukrainians. So it shows there's going to be serious effect in regards to winter coming. So I will advise that the Russians should have a rethink so that the weather, which is winter, as strong and as solid as it is, will not have effect on the people.
All right. So what's your last line on this, Neville Bakedo? Advice to Ukrainian, Russia, even the world at large.
My advice to the nations of the world, starting from our country, Nigeria. We are preparing for, because according to the Electoral Act, every 4 years, there shall be an election. Yeah. The kind of leadership that will be provided by those we have elected, in quotes, in Nigeria, let me just say from 1999, it's nothing to write home about. As we prepare for another election now, let Nigerians elect leaders that will fear God and have regard for human beings, for the citizens of this country, so that all this insecurity, where the life of man is now brutish and short and narrow, will come to an end. All this oil theft, where over about 400 or 4,000 barrels of 40,000 barrels of crude oil is being stolen on a daily basis in Nigeria, where you have Nigeria Navy, you have civil defense, you have the police, you have a community that said they are happy to protect oil installation, and you see oil leaving this country on a daily basis and nobody is being prosecuted. Now, let's go to Africa. Recently, Kenya conducted an election and a new president is there. Let other countries learn from that kind of election where the Supreme Court, this time just passed judgment to say this man won this election. Then, and let there be good governance across the world. Then to the Ukrainians, I salute their spirit, their Spartan soldier spirit of comforting Vladimir Putin and helping to liberate other countries that Putin was likely to go and attack. Because this is a message to Putin that if you want to go and attack other countries, it's not going to be as easy as you plan it in the Kremlin in Moscow. So to Putin, to Xi Jinping, to America, to the people of Taiwan, they should go and resolve their matter on the table, on the round table,
not on the war front,
instead of going to war, because the war will be so devastating on the entire world. Just like we have been having problem of wheat, bread is now about 1,000. Family bread, size bread is now about 1,000. This is because of wheat that is coming from Ukraine. And we have vast land where we can plant things that we can use to produce bread. And we are failing to do all those things.
Thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate a wonderful analysis. Well, Barrister, your last line in this discussion quickly.
Well, I wonder when Ogaya seems to take it to the Nigerian politics. I didn't want to mention anything about Nigerian politics. I wanted my peace of mind. But be that as it may, I think this election is a very decisive one. Yeah. Nigerians are becoming more politically enlightened. An average Nigerian is not being a politician, either by registration of political, as member of a political party or not. Some seem to be obedient, some seem to be batified, some seem to be articulated. But we must have a common goal in electing good leaders who listen to the people, because democracy is all about the people.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen. You've heard them from the Russia-Ukraine war, the possible outcome to advising Nigerians, the world, Russia, Ukraine, Taiwan, America, where we all want peace in this world. If Russia-Ukraine crisis can be amicably resolved, I believe that Taiwan-Chinese crisis, with America in the center of all this, will be amicably resolved for the world to come back to normal. Because right now, you will agree with me that the world is not itself right now. The world is not just itself. Inflation, scarcity, hunger, natural disaster, you just name it. Peace should be our watchword. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I appreciate a wonderful analysis. Thank you. Next week, Tuesday, God willing, I'll see you guys. Bye for now.